The slap echoed like a gunshot across the frozen town square. Blood sprayed from Kate Morrison's split lip, painting the white snow crimson at her feet. But she did not cry out. After 6 days locked in an iron cage barely large enough for a dog, Kate Morrison had forgotten how to scream. February 18, 1882, Dust Creek, Wyoming Territory. 8 in the morning, and the temperature had not crawled above 12 degrees below zero. The cage sat in the center of the town square where everyone who passed could see it. That was the point. Make an example. Remind the decent folks of Dust Creek what happened to people who did not belong. Kate Morrison was 32 years old. She had been a wife. She had been a mother. She had been a woman with a home and a future. Now she was property. Stolen property according to the men who had put her here. And stolen property did not deserve mercy. Victor Blackwood stood outside the cage, his breath making white clouds in the frozen air. He was 31 years old, broad-shouldered and cruel-faced, with a scar that ran from his left eye to his jaw. A souvenir from a miner who had tried to fight back. The miner was dead now. Victor made sure everyone knew that. He struck Kate again. This time across the face with the back of his hand. Her head snapped to the side. More blood. She could taste it, copper and salt filling her mouth. But still, she did not make a sound. "Where are the ledgers?" Victor's voice was low, almost conversational, as if they were discussing the weather, as if he had not been asking this same question for 6 days straight. "Tell me where your husband hid them, and I will make your death quick." Kate turned her face back to him. Slowly. Her movements were stiff from the cold, from the cramped space, from the bruises that covered her body like a patchwork quilt. She looked Victor Blackwood in the eye and smiled. Blood stained her teeth. "You will never find them," she whispered. Her voice was hoarse from thirst, from screaming during the first 2 days before she learned that screaming changed nothing. "My father died because of you. My husband died because of you. But the truth will not die." Victor's hand moved to the pistol at his hip. The crowd that had gathered to watch understood what that meant. 30, maybe 40 people stood in a loose circle around the cage. Women pulled their children away. Men shook their heads and looked at the ground. "Not our problem," their silence said. "Not our fight." Sheriff Garrett Walsh leaned against the post of the land office, arms crossed, watching with dead eyes. He was 48 years old and had been on Cornelius Blackwood's payroll for the past decade. Whatever happened here, he would write it up as justified. He always did. "Do it quick, Victor," Walsh called out. "I do not want to clean up the mess." Victor drew his pistol. A Colt .45, well-maintained, deadly at this range. He pressed the barrel against Kate's forehead, right between her eyes. The metal was so cold, it burned. "Last chance," Victor said. Kate closed her eyes. In her mind she saw her daughter. Sarah, 6 years old. Brown hair like her father's. Eyes that still held light even after everything they had seen. Sarah was somewhere in this town, locked in a room at Blackwood Mining Company headquarters. If Kate died here, what would happen to her little girl? But she could not give them the ledgers. Owen had died to protect those records. 15 men murdered in fake mining accidents. 20 families driven off their land through fraud. Bribes paid to judges, sheriffs, politicians. All of it documented in Owen Morrison's careful handwriting. All of it proof that could destroy Cornelius Blackwood's empire. Kate opened her eyes and looked at Victor one last time. "Go to hell," she said. The sound of hoofbeats stopped Victor's finger on the trigger. A wagon thundered into the town square from the west, moving fast enough to kick up snow and frozen dirt. The horse pulling it was a big chestnut mare, breathing hard steam pouring from her nostrils. The man driving was tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a long coat and a hat pulled low against the cold. 4 boys sat in the back of the wagon. The oldest looked maybe 14. The youngest could not have been more than 5 years old. They all wore heavy winter clothes, all had the same serious eyes as the man driving. Sons, Kate thought. Those are his sons. The wagon stopped 20 feet from the cage. The man climbed down slowly, like he had all the time in the world, like there was not a gun pressed against a woman's head, like this was just another Tuesday morning in Dust Creek, Wyoming territory. He was close to 40, Kate guessed, maybe a year or two younger. His face was weathered from sun and wind, the kind of face you earned from decades of outdoor work. His eyes were blue and tired and sad, but there was something else in them too, something that looked like anger. The youngest boy, the 5-year-old with blond hair and round cheeks, tugged on the man's sleeve. "Papa," the boy said. His voice was high and sweet and confused. "Why is that lady in a cage?" The man did not answer right away. He just stood there staring at Kate. Not through her the way everyone else did, not past her like she was already a corpse. He looked at her, really looked at her. For the first time in 6 days, someone saw Kate Morrison as a human being. Victor lowered his gun slightly, turning to face this interruption. "This is not your concern, stranger," Victor said. "Move along." The man ignored him. He walked closer to the cage, his boots crunching on the frozen ground. When he was near enough, he crouched down so he was at eye level with Kate. "How long?" he asked quietly. Kate tried to speak, but her throat was too dry. She swallowed hard, wincing at the pain, and tried again. 6 days. The man's jaw tightened. Something flickered across his face. Rage, maybe, or grief, or both. "Have they given you water?" "Yesterday morning, 1 cup. Food? No." The man stood up and turned to face Victor Blackwood. He did not raise his voice, did not threaten, just asked a simple question. "Is this your doing?" Victor smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "You must be new to Dust Creek. I am Victor Blackwood. My father owns this town. This woman is a thief and a liar, and she will hang for her crimes. I see no judge. I see no trial. I see a woman in a cage being left to freeze to death. That is our justice here." "Then your justice is wrong." Victor's smile faded. His hand moved back to his pistol. "You want to make this your problem, stranger." The man reached into his coat. For a moment, Kate thought he was drawing a weapon, but instead he pulled out a worn leather wallet. He opened it and began counting bills. "How much to let her out?" Victor blinked. "What? The woman. How much to open that cage and let her walk? She is not for sale." "Everything is for sale. Name your price." Victor stared at the stranger like he had lost his mind. Then he laughed. It was an ugly sound full of mockery and cruelty. "You want to buy yourself a criminal? What for? You got 4 boys already, not enough to warm your bed." The man moved so fast Kate barely saw it. One moment he was standing 3 feet from Victor. The next, he had the younger man pinned against the land office wall, his forearm pressed against Victor's throat. "Watch your mouth," the man said quietly. "Those are my sons you are talking about." "Get off me," Victor choked out. "Name your price right now, or I break your neck in front of your whole town." The crowd had gone very still. Sheriff Walsh pushed off from his post, hand moving toward his gun, but something in the stranger's eyes made him stop. $100, Victor gasped. 100, and she is yours." The man let him go. Victor stumbled forward, gasping for air, his hand going to his throat, where red marks were already forming. "You are crazy," Victor spat. "Crazy as a kicked dog." The stranger pulled money from his wallet and counted out the bills. He held them toward Victor without looking at him. "Open the cage." "You are making a mistake." "I said open it." Victor's face twisted with fury, but he pulled a key ring from his belt and stomped toward the cage. He jammed the key into the padlock with more force than necessary and yanked it open. "Fine, take her. But when my father finds out about this, you will wish you had never come to Dust Creek." Kate tried to move, but her body would not cooperate. 6 days folded into that cramped space had left her muscles useless. She managed to shift forward a few inches, reaching for the open door, but when she tried to stand, everything gave out. The man caught her before she hit the ground. His arms swept her up like she weighed nothing, one around her back, the other under her knees. He held her against his chest, and Kate felt warmth for the first time in 6 days. Real warmth radiating from this stranger who had just paid $100 for a woman he had never met. "I have got you," he said quietly. "You are safe now." Kate wanted to respond, wanted to thank him, but her throat closed up, and all that came out was a sound that might have been a sob. The man carried her to the wagon. The 4 boys scooted back to make room, their eyes wide and worried. The oldest one, the 14-year-old with dark hair and his father's serious face, immediately reached for blankets. "Papa, she is freezing," the boy said. "I know, Daniel. Cover her up." The boys moved quickly. Blankets appeared tucked around Kate's shaking body. The youngest one, the 5-year-old, pressed against her side. "Do not be scared," the little boy whispered. "Papa is going to take care of you." The man climbed into the driver's seat and gathered the reins. Victor Blackwood was still standing by the empty cage, his face purple with rage. "Wait just a minute," Victor started. "We are done here." The man did not turn around. "You have your money. I have what I came for." "What you came for?" "You came for fence posts and feed, not some vagrant woman. I changed my mind." He snapped the reins and the wagon lurched forward. "Tell your father if he wants to discuss this, he can find me at Garrett Ranch." As they rolled out of Dust Creek, Kate looked back and saw Victor still standing by the empty cage, his face twisted with something between rage and confusion. Sheriff Walsh was talking to him, gesturing angrily. But Kate did not care anymore. For the first time in 6 days, she was free. The wagon rolled west along a road that cut through snow-covered prairie. The landscape was harsh and beautiful, endless white, broken only by dark shapes of distant mountains. The boys had surrounded Kate like a protective wall, their small bodies adding warmth to the blankets piled over her. "I am Abigail," the oldest boy said. Then he stopped, shook his head. "No, I am sorry. I am Daniel. That is William. That is James. And you already met Robert." The names barely registered. Kate was too exhausted, too overwhelmed, but she managed to whisper 2 words. "Thank you." "Here." The second oldest boy, William, produced a canteen from somewhere. "Drink slow. Papa says if you drink too fast when you are real thirsty, it makes you sick." The water was cool but not cold. Kate took small sips, feeling it spread through her body like life returning. Like hope. "What is your name?" the third boy, James, asked. He looked about 8 years old with pale hair and watchful eyes. Kate Morrison." "That is pretty," Robert said, still pressed against her side. "You smell like snow." "Robert," Daniel hissed, "do not say things like that." "Why not? Snow smells nice." Kate felt something crack open in her chest. These boys, with their bright eyes and easy kindness, had no idea what they were doing to her. No idea that 6 days ago she had given up hope of ever being treated like a human being again. "It is all right," she whispered. "I do not mind." The man's voice carried from the front of the wagon. "How are you doing back there, Miss Morrison?" "Miss?" He had called her miss like she was someone worth respecting. "Better," Kate said. "Thank you for what you did back there." "Do not thank me yet. We have got 2 hours of riding ahead, and I cannot guarantee the boys will not talk your ear off." "Papa," William protested. "We are being helpful. I know you are son." Kate pulled the blankets tighter around herself and watched the landscape roll by. The cold was starting to ease, replaced by the bone-deep exhaustion of someone who had been running on fear for too long, but beneath the exhaustion was something else. Something she had not felt in a very long time. Curiosity. "Can I ask you something?" The words came out before she could stop them. "Go ahead," the man said without turning around. "Why did you stop? Everyone else just walked past. Why you—" The man was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rougher than before. "Because my wife would have stopped. And even though she has been gone 2 years, I still try to do what she would have done." Kate felt her chest tighten. "I am sorry about your wife." "Me too." He glanced back at his 4 sons. But she left me these boys, and that is more than most men get. I just try to raise them the way she would have wanted." Robert tugged on Kate's blanket. "Mama is in heaven," he said seriously, "but she watches us from the stars." "That is beautiful," Kate whispered. "Papa told us. He says she is the brightest one right up there next to the moon." Kate looked at these 4 motherless boys clustered around a stranger they had found in a cage, offering warmth and water and kindness like it was the most natural thing in the world. And she thought about the woman who had raised them, the woman who was apparently so full of light that even 2 years after her death, her family still tried to live by her example. "She must have been an amazing woman," Kate said. "She was," the man agreed, "the best I ever knew." They rode in silence after that. Kate drifted in and out of sleep, her body finally relaxing now that it was not fighting for survival. Every time she woke, one of the boys would be watching her with concerned eyes, ready to offer water or adjust her blankets. At some point, William started humming, a hymn maybe. Something soft and slow that made Kate think of churches and Sunday mornings and a life she had left behind years ago. The sound wrapped around her like another blanket, warm and safe. The sun was touching the western mountains when the wagon finally stopped. "We are home," Robert announced. "Can Miss Kate sleep in my room? She is going to have her own room, son, the guest bedroom. But I want her close. She will be close enough. Now everybody out. Let's get Miss Kate inside." The boys scrambled down from the wagon, their energy seemingly endless despite the long ride. The man came around to the back and held out his arms. "Can you walk?" Kate tried to move her legs. They responded barely. "I think so. Maybe. Let me help." He lifted her down from the wagon, steadying her when her knees threatened to buckle. His hands were gentle but strong, supporting without constraining. "Easy," he murmured. "Take your time." Kate took a step, then another. Her legs felt like they belonged to someone else, but they held. The house in front of her was modest but solid, logs and stone with a wide front porch and smoke curling from the chimney. The boys ran ahead, throwing open the door and calling out about the guest they had brought home. "This way." The man's hand stayed on her elbow. "Watch the step." Inside the house smelled like wood smoke and something cooking. Stew, maybe. Kate's stomach cramped at the scent, reminding her that she had not eaten properly in 6 days. "Boys," the man called. "William, get the stew on the table. Daniel, fetch clean clothes from the trunk. James, heat water for washing. Robert, stay out of the way." They scattered to their tasks like a well-trained army. The man guided Kate to a chair by the fire and helped her sit. The heat was almost painful after so much cold, but she did not pull away. Could not pull away. The warmth was the first good thing she had felt in longer than she could remember. "I do not understand," she said quietly. "Do not understand any of this. Why you paid for me, why you brought me here." She looked up at him. "I am nobody, mister. I do not even know your name. Tom Garrett. Mr. Garrett, I have got nothing. No money, no family, nothing to offer you. Why would you?" "Because someone should have." His voice was firm. "Someone should have stopped that cage 6 days ago, and no one did. I could not change that, but I could change what happened next. You do not even know me. I know you were cold and hungry and treated like an animal by people who call themselves Christians." His eyes held hers. "I know that is wrong. That is enough for now." Daniel appeared with a bundle of clothes. They were women's clothes, Kate realized, simple but clean. "These were Mama's," Daniel said quietly. "They might be a little big, but they are clean." Kate took the clothes with trembling hands. "Thank you. I will take good care of them." "They are yours now," Daniel said. "Mama would have wanted you to have them." Before Kate could respond, William appeared with a steaming bowl. "Stew is ready. Eat slow, though. You have not had food in a while." Kate took the bowl and just held it for a moment, letting the warmth seep through the ceramic into her frozen fingers. The smell made her dizzy with hunger. She took one bite, then another. It was the best thing she had ever tasted. "Good," James asked, hovering nearby. So good, Kate's voice cracked. So very good. She ate slowly the way William had advised while the boys bustled around preparing beds and heating water. Tom sat in a chair across the room, watching everything with those tired, sad eyes. When Kate finally set down the empty bowl, she felt almost human again. "There is a bedroom at the end of the hall," Tom said. "It is small, but it is private. You can stay there as long as you need. I cannot I should work, earn my keep." "We will talk about that tomorrow. Tonight you rest." He stood. "Daniel, help Miss Morrison to her room. Make sure she has everything she needs." "Yes, Papa." Daniel led Kate down a narrow hallway to a small room at the back of the house. There was a bed with a thick quilt, a washstand with a basin, and a window that looked out over the eastern pasture. "The water is warm," Daniel said, gesturing to the basin, "and I left clean towels on the bed. Is there anything else you need?" Kate looked around the room that was somehow hers. "Private, safe, warm. I do not know how to thank you," she whispered. "Any of you." "You do not have to." Daniel smiled, and for a moment he looked exactly like Kate imagined his mother must have looked. "Mama always said kindness is not something you pay back. It is something you pass forward." He left, closing the door softly behind him. Kate stood alone in the room. She wanted to cry, wanted to scream, wanted to fall to her knees and thank God or curse him or something, anything, to release the pressure building in her chest. Instead, she walked to the basin and looked at her reflection in the small mirror above it. The face that stared back was barely recognizable. Gaunt cheeks, cracked lips, eyes that looked 100 years old. But she was alive. Against all odds, against everything that had tried to destroy her, she was alive. Kate washed her face with the warm water, scrubbing away 6 days of dirt and tears and despair. She changed into the dead woman's clothes, a simple dress that was indeed too big, but felt like the finest silk against her skin. Then she crawled into the bed, pulled the quilt up to her chin, and listened to the sounds of the house settling around her. Children's voices, soft and cheerful, Tom's low murmur answering questions, the crackle of the fire, the creak of floorboards, normal sounds, family sounds, sounds Kate had forgotten existed. But even as exhaustion pulled her toward sleep, one thought kept circling in her mind: her daughter. Sarah was still in Dust Creek, still locked in that office, still in the hands of Cornelius Blackwood. Kate's eyes snapped open in the darkness. Tomorrow she would tell Tom Garrett about Sarah. Tomorrow she would beg him to help her one more time. Tomorrow she would find out if this stranger's kindness had limits. But tonight she was warm and fed and safe, and tomorrow would come soon enough. Kate woke to the smell of bacon frying. For a moment she did not know where she was. The bed was too soft, the room was too warm, the silence was too complete. Then everything came rushing back: the cage, the cold, the man who had paid $100 to set her free, and Sarah. Kate sat up so fast her head spun. Sarah was still in Dust Creek, still locked in that office, still in the hands of men who saw children as bargaining chips. She pushed herself out of bed, ignoring the protests of muscles that had spent 6 days cramped in iron. The dress she wore, the dead wife's dress, hung loose on her frame. Kate had lost weight during her captivity, more than she could afford to lose. There was a knock at the door, gentle, almost apologetic. "Miss Kate." It was Robert's voice, high and sweet. "Papa says breakfast is ready." Kate opened the door to find all 4 boys standing in the hallway. They had clearly been waiting for her, trying to be quiet, trying not to disturb. The sight of them, these motherless children trying so hard to make her feel welcome, nearly broke her. "Thank you," she managed. "I will be right there." She followed them to the kitchen, where Tom stood at the stove turning bacon in a cast-iron skillet. He glanced at her, and something flickered in his eyes. Concern, maybe, or something deeper. "How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in months." "Good. Sit down. Food is almost ready." Kate took the empty chair at the end of the table. The boys settled around her, a wall of small bodies and innocent faces. But Kate could feel Daniel watching her. The oldest boy, 14 years old, and already carrying the weight of a man, studied her with careful eyes. Tom set a plate in front of her. Bacon, eggs, fresh bread with butter. More food than she had seen in weeks. Her hands shook as she picked up the fork. "I need to tell you something," Kate said quietly. Tom paused the coffee pot in his hand. "All right." "My daughter, Sarah. She is 6 years old. The Blackwoods are holding her at their office in Dust Creek." The kitchen went very still. Even Robert stopped eating, his round face serious. "You have a daughter," Tom said. It was not a question. "I did not mention her yesterday because I thought if I got free I could find a way to get her back myself. But I cannot. I have nothing. No money, no weapons, no—" Kate's voice broke. "I am asking you to help me one more time. I know I have no right. I know you have done enough already. But she is all I have left in this world." Tom set down the coffee pot. He pulled out the chair next to Kate and sat down, his blue eyes steady on her face. "How many men are guarding the office?" "At least 6, maybe more." "Armed?" "Yes." Tom nodded slowly, like he was working through a problem in his head. Then he looked at his sons. "Boys, go get the wagon ready. We are taking a ride back to Dust Creek." Daniel stood up so fast his chair nearly tipped over. "Papa, no, this is not our fight. A child is being held prisoner. That makes it our fight. She is not our family. We do not owe her anything." Tom's voice stayed calm, but something hard entered it. "We owe every child protection. That is what your mother would have said. That is what I am saying now." Daniel's face flushed red. For a moment Kate thought he might argue more. But he just turned and walked out of the house, slamming the door behind him. "I am sorry," Kate whispered. "I should not have asked." "You did not ask for any of this." Tom stood. "Get ready. We leave in 10 minutes." The ride back to Dust Creek took 2 hours. Tom drove in silence, his jaw set, his hands steady on the reins. The 4 boys sat in the back with Kate. Daniel had not said a word since they left the ranch. He sat as far from Kate as the wagon bed allowed, his arms crossed, his face turned away. William tried to lighten the mood with stories. James pointed out birds and landmarks. Robert fell asleep against Kate's side, his small body warm and trusting, but the tension hung over them like storm clouds. "Daniel is afraid," William said quietly so his older brother would not hear. "He thinks Papa is going to get hurt trying to help you." "I understand," Kate said. "I am afraid too." When they reached Dust Creek, Tom did not stop in the town square. He drove directly to the Blackwood Mining Company office, a 2-story wooden building on the east side of town. 6 guards stood outside, rifles in hand, watching the street with hard eyes. Tom pulled the wagon to a stop 50 feet away. "Daniel," he said, "you are going to circle around back. There will be a window. Find it. Find the girl. When you hear me make a commotion out front, you get her out." "Papa, this is crazy. They will kill you." "Then you had better be fast." Tom reached under the seat and pulled out a rifle. "William, you are going to stay with the wagon. If shooting starts, you drive these horses away from here as fast as you can. Do not wait for me." "But Papa—" "Do not argue. James, Robert, you stay down and you stay quiet." "Understood." Both boys nodded, their faces pale. Tom looked at Kate. "Can you shoot?" "My husband taught me. I am not an expert, but I can hit what I aim at." Tom handed her a pistol from under the seat. "Stay behind me. If they try to take you, shoot them." He climbed down from the wagon and walked toward the building like he had every right to be there. Kate followed the pistol, heavy in her hand, her heart hammering so hard she could hear it in her ears. The guards stepped forward to block their path. "That is far enough," one of them said. "Mr. Blackwood is not seeing visitors. Tell Cornelius Blackwood that Tom Garrett is here about the Morrison child." The guard hesitated, then turned and went inside. Tom waited, his hands loose at his sides, his body relaxed. But Kate could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes tracked every movement. The door opened again. This time it was not a guard. Cornelius Blackwood was 56 years old, but looked older. His hair was steel gray, his face lined with the kind of deep creases that came from years of scowling. He wore an expensive suit out of place in this rough mining town and carried himself like a man who had never been told no in his life. "Tom Garrett," Cornelius said. His voice was smooth, educated with just a hint of mockery. "I heard you bought something of mine yesterday. I bought a woman's freedom. I am here to complete the transaction." "Complete it how?" "By taking her daughter." Cornelius smiled. It did not reach his eyes. "The child is not for sale. She is insurance. Insurance that Mrs. Morrison will return what her husband stole from me. Her husband is dead. Yes, an unfortunate mining accident just like her father before him." Cornelius tilted his head. "The Morrison family has very bad luck, it seems." Kate felt ice in her veins. Her father. Cornelius was talking about her father. James Morrison had been Cornelius Blackwood's partner 20 years ago. They had built the mining company together, equal shares, equal say. Until James discovered that Cornelius was falsifying reports, bribing officials, ordering miners killed to cover up safety violations. James Morrison had threatened to expose everything. 3 months later, he was found hanging in his barn. Suicide, the coroner said. But Kate had been 12 years old, and she remembered her father's hands. Strong hands. Hands that would never have tied that rope. "You killed my father," Kate said. Her voice shook, but she got the words out. "You killed my husband. How many more people have to die before you have enough?" Cornelius looked at her for the first time. Really looked at her, and Kate saw something flicker across his face. Recognition. Maybe even a hint of guilt, but it was gone in an instant, replaced by cold calculation. "Your father made his choices. Your husband made his. You can make yours right now. Tell me where Owen hid those ledgers, and I will give you your daughter. You can walk away. Start over somewhere far from here. And if I do not, then I keep the child. She is young, trainable. In a few years she will be quite useful to me." The implication in those words made Kate's stomach turn. She raised the pistol, pointing it directly at Cornelius Blackwood's chest. "Give me my daughter, or I will kill you right here." Cornelius did not even flinch. "If you kill me, my men will kill you and Mr. Garrett and all 4 of his sons. Is that really what you want?" From somewhere behind the building came the sound of breaking glass. Then a child's scream. Then Daniel's voice, young, sung, and scared, but determined. "I have got her, Papa. I have got her." Cornelius's face went dark with rage. He reached for the gun at his hip, but Tom was faster. His rifle came up, the barrel pointed at Cornelius's head. "Do not," Tom said quietly. The guards raised their weapons. 6 rifles pointed at Tom and Kate. For a moment the world balanced on the edge of a knife. One wrong move and they would all die right here in the dirt. Then Daniel appeared around the corner of the building, running flat out, a small girl clutched against his chest. Sarah Morrison, 6 years old with brown hair and her father's eyes, and terror written across her face. "Mama!" she screamed. "Mama!" The sound of her daughter's voice broke something in Kate. She turned and ran toward them, the pistol forgotten everything, forgotten except getting to her child. Cornelius Blackwood drew his gun. Tom fired first. The bullet hit the gun in Cornelius's hand, sending it spinning away. Cornelius howled in pain, clutching his hand where splinters of metal had torn the skin. "Next time I aim for your head," Tom said. Then louder to everyone, "Get to the wagon now." They ran. Kate grabbed Sarah from Daniel's arms and ran faster than she had ever run in her life. Tom backed toward the wagon, his rifle still trained on the guards, daring them to make a move. William had the wagon rolling before they even reached it. Daniel jumped on first, then pulled Kate and Sarah up. Tom threw himself into the driver's seat and whipped the horses into a gallop. Behind them, gunfire erupted. Bullets whined past, kicking up dirt, splintering the wood sides of the wagon. But the horses were fast, and Tom drove like a madman, taking corners too sharp, pushing too hard, not caring about anything except distance. They did not stop until Dust Creek was 5 miles behind them, and the road was empty in all directions. Tom pulled the horses to a walk, letting them catch their breath. His hands were shaking on the reins. Kate realized her whole body was shaking. "Is everyone all right?" Tom asked. A chorus of yeses came from the back. Kate looked down at Sarah, who was sobbing into her shoulder, little hands clutched tight in Kate's dress. "It is over, baby," Kate whispered. "Mama has got you. Mama has got you, and I am never letting go." She looked up and found Tom watching her in the wagon's small mirror. Their eyes met. Something passed between them. Understanding, maybe, or recognition that they had just crossed a line they could never uncross. "Thank you," Kate said, "for my daughter, for risking your sons, for everything." Tom nodded once. Then he turned back to the road and drove them home. The sun was setting by the time they reached Garrett Ranch. The boys were exhausted, the adrenaline crash leaving them quiet and pale. Sarah had cried herself to sleep in Kate's arms, her small body limp with relief. Tom helped Kate down from the wagon, his hands gentle on her waist. "The guest room has 2 beds," he said. "Sarah can stay with you." "Mr. Garrett—" "Tom, my name is Tom. Tom, I do not know how to repay you. You do not owe me anything. Get some rest, both of you." Kate carried Sarah inside and laid her on the smaller bed in the guest room. The little girl did not wake, just curled on her side and kept sleeping. Kate sat beside her, watching her breathe, touching her hair, making sure she was real. A soft knock made her look up. Daniel stood in the doorway, his face unreadable. "Is she all right?" "Yes, thanks to you." Daniel looked at his feet. "I did not want to help you. I know. I thought you were going to get my father killed, get all of us killed." "You were right to think that. But I helped anyway, because Papa asked me to, because—" Daniel's voice cracked. "Because my mother would have wanted me to." Kate stood and crossed the room. She wanted to hug this boy who had risked his life for a stranger's child. But she could see in his eyes that he was not ready for that, not yet. "Your mother raised a very brave son," Kate said quietly. Daniel nodded once. Then he turned and left, closing the door softly behind him. Kate returned to her vigil beside Sarah's bed. Outside the window, full dark had fallen. She could hear the boys getting ready for bed, hear Tom's low voice giving instructions. Normal sounds, safe sounds, but Kate knew this safety was temporary. Cornelius Blackwood was not a man who let things go. He would come for her, for the Ledgers, for revenge. And when he did, she would be putting this family in danger all over again. Kate looked down at the dress she wore, the dead wife's dress. She thought about the woman who had lived in this house, raised these boys, loved this man. A woman who helped people. A woman who would have done exactly what Tom did today, but that woman was dead, and Kate was alive. And she did not know if she had the right to be here wearing a dead woman's clothes, sleeping in a dead woman's house, putting a dead woman's family at risk. She did not realize she was crying until she tasted salt on her lips. There was another knock. This time it was Tom holding 2 cups of something hot. "Thought you might want this," he said. Kate took the cup, hot chocolate. The smell alone was enough to make her want to weep again. "The boys are asleep," Tom said. "All except Daniel. He is pretending to sleep, but I can hear him thinking from down the hall." Despite everything, Kate almost smiled. "He hates me." "He does not hate you. He is afraid. Of me. Of losing someone else." Tom sat down in the chair by the door. "When my wife died, Daniel took it hardest. He was 12, old enough to understand death, young enough to think he could have prevented it. How did she die? Fever. Or that is what the doctor said." Something dark crossed Tom's face. "She was sick for 3 days, burning up, calling for me. And then she was gone. I am sorry." They sat in silence, sipping their chocolate, watching Sarah sleep. The moment felt fragile, like if either of them spoke too loud, it would shatter. Finally, Tom said, "You should know what you are bringing into this house. I know. Cornelius Blackwood will not stop. He will send men. He will burn us out if he has to." "That is not what I meant." Tom looked at her directly. "I meant you should know what kind of man I am, what kind of family this is. We are not perfect. We are broken in ways that do not show. But we do not abandon people. We do not turn away from what is right just because it is hard." Kate felt something crack open in her chest. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because tomorrow morning you are going to think about leaving. You are going to think it is the right thing to do, the safe thing, to take Sarah and disappear before Blackwood's men come. And I want you to know that if you do that, you will be making the wrong choice." "How do you know what I am thinking?" "Because it is what I would be thinking." Tom stood. "Stay, Kate. Let us fight this together. Let us show Cornelius Blackwood what happens when he pushes good people too far." He left before she could answer. Kate sat alone with her sleeping daughter and her racing thoughts. Stay or run, safety or courage. The choice felt impossible. But when she finally crawled into bed next to Sarah, when she felt her daughter's small body warm and safe beside her, she knew what her answer would be. She had been running for a year. Running from Cornelius Blackwood, from her husband's death, from the truth locked in those ledgers. Maybe it was time to stop running. Maybe it was time to fight. Kate woke to darkness and the smell of coffee. For a moment she lay still, listening to the house settling around her. Sarah breathed softly beside her, one small hand curled against her cheek. Safe. Her daughter was safe. But for how long Kate slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Sarah, and pulled a shawl around her shoulders. The house was quiet except for a faint sound coming from the kitchen. She followed it and found Tom sitting at the table, a single candle burning, a cup of coffee steaming in his hands. He looked up when she entered, no surprise in his eyes, like he had been waiting for her. "Could not sleep either?" he asked. "Too many thoughts." "I know that feeling." He gestured to the pot on the stove. "Coffee is fresh if you want some." Kate poured herself a cup and sat down across from him. The candle flame danced between them, casting shadows on the walls. Outside, the wind had picked up, rattling the windows, making the whole house feel like a ship at sea. "Thank you," Kate said, "for Sarah, for everything. You have already thanked me." "Not enough. Never enough." Tom looked at her over the rim of his cup. "You do not need to keep thanking me, Kate. I did what anyone should have done. But no one else did. Just you." They sat in silence for a moment. The wind howled. The candle flickered. "Can I ask you something?" Kate said quietly. "Seems to be a habit of yours." Despite everything, she almost smiled. "Why did you really stop in Dust Creek, and do not tell me it was because your wife would have wanted it? I need to understand." Tom set down his cup. His hands were scarred from years of ranch work, the knuckles thick and rough. Working hands, honest hands. "2 years ago," he began, "I watched Sarah die. My Sarah, my wife. It took 3 days. Fever, the doctor said. I sat beside her bed and held her hand, and I could not do a damn thing to help her." His voice was steady, but Kate could hear the pain underneath it, raw and deep. "When she died, something in me died too. I kept going because the boys needed me, but I was just going through the motions, working, eating, sleeping, not really living." He looked up and met Kate's eyes. "Then I saw you in that cage, and for the first time in 2 years, I felt something besides grief. I felt angry. I felt like there was still something in this world worth fighting for." Kate's throat tightened. "You do not even know me. I know you survived 6 days in an iron cage in the middle of winter. I know you did not break. I know you have a daughter you would die for." Tom's voice dropped. "That tells me everything I need to know." Kate wanted to say something to explain that she was not strong, that she had nearly given up 12 times in that cage. But before she could speak, Tom stood. "Put on something warm. I want to show you something." They stepped out into the night. The temperature had dropped well below freezing, and Kate's breath came out in white clouds. Tom led her away from the house, past the barn, to a small rise that overlooked the ranch. "This is where Sarah is buried," he said, gesturing to a simple wooden cross. I come out here sometimes when I cannot sleep. Talk to her. Ask her what I should do." Kate looked at the grave, then at Tom. "What does she say?" "Nothing. But I like to think she would approve of what I did yesterday. Helping you? Helping your daughter. She must have been an incredible woman." "She was. Kind, patient, everything I am not." Tom turned to face Kate. "But she is gone, and I am still here, and I have to figure out how to keep living." The vulnerability in his voice broke something open in Kate. This man who had saved her, who had risked everything for a stranger, was just as lost as she was, just as broken. "I am afraid," Kate whispered. "Of what? Of Blackwood. Of what he will do to you and your sons because of me. Of—" She stopped, the words catching in her throat. "Of what?" Tom pressed gently. "Of this. Whatever this is between us. I feel it, and I do not know if I should." Tom was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. "I feel it too, and it scares the hell out of me." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. His palm was warm against her frozen fingers. "But maybe being scared is not a reason to stop," he said. "Maybe it is a reason to keep going." Kate looked down at their joined hands. 2 years ago she would have pulled away. 2 years ago she would have said it was too soon, too fast, too dangerous. But 2 years ago she had not spent 6 days in a cage wondering if she would ever feel human touch again. She squeezed his hand. "Trust has to be earned," she said quietly. "I know. And I will earn yours, however long it takes." They stood together in the darkness, the wind whipping around them, their breath mingling in the frozen air. Kate felt something shifting inside her, something that might have been hope. Then they heard the sound of hoofbeats, fast, coming from the east. Tom's hand went to the pistol at his hip. "Get inside," he said. "Wake the boys. Tell them to get armed." But before Kate could move, a rider came into view, not Victor Blackwood or his men, someone else. An older man riding hard, his face panicked in the moonlight. "Tom Garrett!" the man shouted. "Tom, I need to speak with you." Tom stepped forward, his gun half drawn. "Who are you?" The man pulled his horse to a stop, breathing hard. "Dr. Henry Barnes, from Dust Creek. I have to tell you about Sarah, about your wife." The words hit Tom like a physical blow. Kate saw him sway, saw his hand tighten on the pistol. "What about my wife?" Tom's voice was dangerous. "She has been dead for 2 years. That is what I came to tell you." Barnes dismounted, his hands shaking. "She was not supposed to die. She was murdered." The world seemed to stop. Barnes sat at the kitchen table, a cup of coffee in his trembling hands. Tom stood with his back against the wall, his face carved from stone. The 4 boys had gathered in their nightshirts, rubbing sleep from their eyes. Daniel stood closest to his father, his young face pale with dread. Kate held Sarah, who had woken crying from the commotion. She bounced the little girl gently, trying to soothe her, but her own heart was racing. "Tell me," Tom said. His voice was flat, empty. Barnes took a shaky breath. 2 years ago, Sarah came to me. Your Sarah. She was frightened. She said she had witnessed something terrible. What did she witness? Victor Blackwood killing a miner. She saw it happen at the mine entrance. Victor beat the man to death with a shovel, then made it look like a cave-in. Tom's jaw clenched. "Go on." "Sarah told me she was going to report it to the authorities. I begged her not to. I told her Blackwood owned the sheriff, owned the judges. But she would not listen. She said someone had to stand up to them." Barnes's hands shook harder. 3 days later she got sick. High fever, vomiting, convulsions. I examined her, and I knew. I had seen arsenic poisoning before. But Cornelius Blackwood came to my office that night. He gave me $500 and told me to write fever on the death certificate. He said if I did not, my own family would die the same way. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the wind seemed to have stopped. Tom pushed off from the wall. His movements were slow, controlled, but Kate could see the rage building underneath. "You let my wife die," Tom said. You took their money, and you let her die, and you said nothing for 2 years. I know. God help me, I know. Why now? Why tell me now? Because Kate Morrison has those ledgers. Because if she can prove what Blackwood has done, maybe I can finally make this right. Maybe I can—" Barnes's voice broke. "Maybe I can sleep again." Daniel made a sound. A small broken sound. Everyone turned to look at him. The boy was crying, silent tears running down his face, his whole body shaking. "I knew," Daniel whispered. "I knew, and I did not tell." Tom crossed the room in 3 strides and gripped his son's shoulders. "What do you mean you knew? The day Mama got sick. I saw Victor leaving our house. He said he had brought some medicine for Mama's headache. But when I asked Mama about it later, she said she never had a headache. She said she did not know why Victor had come." Daniel's voice rose cracking with emotion. "That night she started getting sick, and I knew. I knew something was wrong. But Victor found me the next day, and he said if I told anyone, he would kill you, Papa. He would kill William and James and Robert. So I stayed quiet. I stayed quiet, and I let Mama die." Tom pulled his son into his arms. Daniel collapsed against his father's chest, sobbing like the child he still was underneath all that false bravery. "It is not your fault," Tom said fiercely. "You were 12 years old. You were scared. This is not your fault." William, James, and Robert ran to their father and brother. All 5 of them came together in the middle of the kitchen, holding each other, crying together for the first time since Sarah's death. Kate watched them, her own tears falling. This family, this broken, beautiful family that had saved her, was falling apart in front of her eyes. And it was her fault. If she had never come here, if Tom had never stopped in Dust Creek, they would not be reliving this nightmare. She stood still, holding her daughter, and moved toward the door. "Where are you going?" Tom asked, his voice rough from crying. "I am leaving. I am taking Sarah and the ledgers, and I am going as far away from here as I can. You have done enough. Your family has suffered enough." "Kate, wait. No, this is my fight, not yours. Blackwood murdered my father, my husband, and your wife. But he is not going to murder your sons. I will not let that happen." Tom gently disentangled himself from his boys and crossed to Kate. He took her by the shoulders, forcing her to meet his eyes. "You are not broken," he said firmly. "You are wounded. There is a difference. And wounded things can heal if they are given time and care and people who refuse to give up on them." Kate shook her head. "You do not understand. Blackwood will not stop. He will keep coming. He will burn this place to the ground if he has to." "Then let him come. But we face him together, not you alone." Why would you risk everything for me?" "Because it is not about revenge anymore," Tom said quietly. "It is about justice, about standing up to evil men who think money and power put them above the law, about showing my sons that there are things worth fighting for even when the odds are against you." He cupped her face in his rough hands. "And because in the 2 days I have known you, you have reminded me what it feels like to be alive. And I am not ready to let that go." Kate looked into his eyes and saw the truth there, saw the pain and the hope and the determination, and she made a choice. "The ledgers are in my bag," she said, "hidden in the lining. Owen gave them to me the night before he died. He said they were insurance, proof of everything Blackwood has done. Then we use them. We take them to someone who can make a difference. Who Blackwood owns the law in this territory?" Tom thought for a moment. "There is a settlement, Liberty Springs, about 100 miles west, founded by a minister named Joshua Stone. He built it as a refuge for people running from corruption. I have heard he has connections to federal authorities in Denver." 100 miles in winter, with 4 children? 5, Tom corrected. "Your Sarah makes 5. Kate looked at the boys, still clustered together, their faces streaked with tears. She looked at her own daughter sleeping again against her shoulder. Then she looked at Tom. "When do we leave?" "Soon. But first," Tom turned to Dr. Barnes. "You are going to write down everything you just told me. Every detail, every bribe, every threat, and you are going to sign it." Barnes nodded, his relief visible. I will testify against them if you need me to." "Good. because this ends now. One way or another, Cornelius Blackwood is going to pay for what he has done. The sound of breaking glass shattered the moment. Then fire. Orange light bloomed in the darkness outside. Tom ran to the window and cursed. "The barn! They set the barn on fire!" More glass breaking, this time from the front room. A torch sailed through the window, landing on the wooden floor, flames spreading fast. "Everyone to the back door!" Tom shouted. "Now!" Kate grabbed Sarah and ran. The boys scrambled after their father. Barnes stumbled along behind them. They burst out the back door into the freezing night air, just as gunfire erupted from the darkness. Men surrounded the house. Kate counted 8, maybe 10, all armed, all firing at the ranch house, at the barn, at anything that moved. Tom pushed his sons toward the root cellar behind the house. "Daniel, get everyone inside. Bar the door. Do not come out until I tell you." "Papa, no. I can fight. I need you to protect your brothers, and Kate, and Sarah." "That is an order." Daniel hesitated, then nodded. He herded William James and Robert toward the cellar. Kate followed Dr. Barnes, stumbling after them. Tom grabbed his rifle from the porch and took cover behind the water trough. From the darkness, Victor Blackwood's voice rang out. "Tom Garrett, send out the Morrison woman, or we burn everything you have." Tom fired twice into the darkness. Someone screamed. Someone else returned fire bullets sparking off the trough. Kate, crouched in the cellar entrance, saw Tom get hit. The bullet caught his right thigh, and he went down hard, blood spreading across his pants. "Tom!" she screamed. He rolled behind the trough, gritting his teeth against the pain. "Get inside. Do not come out." But Kate had already made up her mind. She handed Sarah to Daniel. "Keep her safe." "Miss Kate, do not—" Kate grabbed the pistol from her belt and ran. She fired as she ran, not aiming, just providing cover. She reached Tom and dropped beside him, pressing her hand against his bleeding leg. "You are insane," he gasped. "I know." Together they returned fire. Kate's hands were steady. All those hours Owen had spent teaching her to shoot, all those target practices she had thought were pointless, suddenly mattered. She hit someone, saw him fall. Tom took out 2 more. The barn collapsed in a shower of sparks and flames. 3 horses that had been inside screamed their last. The sound was horrible, inhuman. Victor's men pulled back, dragging their wounded with them. In the sudden silence, Kate could hear Tom's labored breathing, could feel his blood hot and sticky on her hands. "How bad?" she asked. "Bad enough. Bullet is still in there." From the cellar, Daniel's voice called out, "Papa, Papa, are you alive?" "I am alive," Tom shouted back. "Stay down." Victor's voice came from the darkness again, further away now. "This is not over, Garrett. Next time I bring 20 men. You cannot protect them all." The sound of horses retreating, then silence, except for the crackling of the burning barn. Kate helped Tom to his feet. He leaned heavily on her, his face pale with blood loss. "We need to get that bullet out," Kate said. "I know. But first, we need to leave. Tonight. They will be back by morning with reinforcements." Daniel and the boys emerged from the cellar. The sight of their father bleeding, leaning on Kate for support, seemed to age them all by years. "Papa, you are hurt," Robert said, his voice small and scared. "I will be fine, son. But we have to go, all of us, right now." They worked fast, loaded the surviving horses, packed what food and supplies they could carry. Dr. Barnes helped Kate bind Tom's leg well enough to ride. As the sun began to rise, they left Garrett Ranch behind. The barn was ash and embers. The house was damaged but standing. But none of them looked back. They rode west toward Liberty Springs, toward hope, toward whatever future waited for them. Behind them, smoke rose into the cold morning sky. And Kate knew that Cornelius Blackwood would see that smoke and know that his prey had escaped. The hunt was just beginning. The first day of riding nearly killed Tom. They had 5 horses for 7 people. Tom and Daniel rode together, with Daniel holding his father upright in the saddle. Kate rode with Sarah clinging to her back. William, James, and Robert shared the third horse, the three boys packed together like sardines. Dr. Barnes rode alone, and the last horse carried their supplies. 20 miles from Garrett Ranch, Tom's fever started. Kate saw it first. The way his shoulders slumped, the way his head lolled forward, the way Daniel had to keep shaking him to keep him conscious. "We need to stop," Kate called out. "We cannot," Daniel said. His voice was tight with fear. "They are following us. I can feel it." "Your father is dying." The word hung in the frozen air. Dying. Tom Garrett, who had broken open an iron cage with his bare hands, who had stood against armed men to save a stranger's child, was dying from a bullet wound and winter cold and blood loss. They stopped in a grove of pine trees sheltered from the wind. Kate and Daniel lowered Tom from the saddle. He was barely conscious, his skin burning hot despite the freezing temperature. "Papa," Daniel said, shaking him gently. "Papa, stay with us." Tom's eyes opened unfocused and glassy. "Sarah," he mumbled. "Sarah, I am sorry. I could not save you." Kate's heart broke. He was not talking to her. He was talking to his dead wife. "Doctor." Barnes knelt beside them, examining the wound. When he peeled back the blood-soaked bandages, Kate had to look away. The bullet was still lodged deep in Tom's thigh. The flesh around it was inflamed, turning ugly colors that promised infection. "I need to get the bullet out now," Barnes said, "or he will not last the night." "Do it," Daniel said. They held Tom down while Barnes worked. The doctor had no proper instruments, just a knife sterilized in whiskey and his own shaking hands. Tom screamed when the blade went in a sound that sent birds scattering from the trees. The boys covered their ears. Sarah buried her face in Kate's shoulder. It took 20 minutes that felt like 20 hours. Finally, Barnes pulled the bullet free, a misshapen piece of lead slick with blood. "Got it," he gasped. "Now we pray the infection does not set in." But the infection had already started. By nightfall, Tom's fever had climbed so high he was delirious. They made camp in an abandoned trapper's cabin 5 miles from the grove. It was not much, just 4 walls and a roof with holes, but it kept the worst of the wind out. Kate built a fire while Daniel and Barnes settled Tom on a bedroll. The boys huddled together, their young faces scared and lost. Sarah sat with them, her small hand holding Robert's. "Is Mr. Tom going to die?" Sarah whispered. "No," Kate said firmly. "He is not going to die." But she was not sure she believed her own words. Through the night, Tom's fever raged. He thrashed and mumbled, calling for his dead wife, apologizing for things Kate did not understand. She sat beside him, bathing his face with cool water, trying to bring the fever down. Daniel sat on Tom's other side, holding his father's hand. "When Mama died," Daniel said quietly, "Papa did not cry, not once. He just kept working, kept taking care of us. I thought he did not care, but now I understand. He cared so much it would have destroyed him if he let himself feel it." Kate looked at this 14-year-old boy who had been forced to grow up too fast. "Your father loves you more than anything in this world," she said. "I know. That is why he cannot die. We need him." Daniel's voice cracked. "I need him." William crawled over to join them, then James, then Robert. Even Sarah came, leaving her spot by the fire. The 5 children gathered around Tom's fevered body, each one touching him somehow, a hand on his arm, a head on his shoulder, a small body pressed against his side. And they prayed. William started it, his young voice shaking but determined. "Dear God, please do not take our papa. We just got him back. Please," James added his prayer, "please make him better. We will be good. We promise." Robert, the youngest, just whispered, "Please, please, please," over and over like a chant. Sarah surprised everyone by speaking up. "Dear God, Mr. Tom saved my mama. Please save him too." Daniel could not speak. He just held his father's hand tighter, tears running down his face. Kate felt her own tears falling. These children, these brave, broken children, praying for the man who had taken them in and loved them and shown them what family meant. She added her own prayer, silent but fervent. Please, please let him live, please." Somewhere past midnight, Tom's fever broke. Kate woke to find him looking at her, his eyes clear for the first time in hours. "Kate." His voice was hoarse but recognizable. "I am here." "The children. Safe, all of them." Tom tried to sit up, but Kate pushed him back down gently. "You need to rest. You were shot. You had a fever. You almost died." Tom smiled weakly. "I heard you, all of you. Your prayers brought me back." Daniel stirred, waking. When he saw his father's clear eyes, he made a sound between a laugh and a sob. "Papa, you are awake." "I am awake, son." The other children woke too, clustering around Tom, all trying to touch him at once to make sure he was real. He was alive, he was theirs. Kate stood and moved away, giving the family their moment. She walked to the cabin door and looked out at the darkness. Dawn was still hours away, but she could see stars through the broken clouds. She heard Tom call her name. "Kate, come here." She went back to the bedroll. The children had settled around him like puppies already falling back asleep, reassured by his presence. "Lie down," Tom said. "You have been up all night. You need rest too." "I am fine." "You are exhausted, and you are freezing. I can see you shaking from here." It was true. Kate had given all the blankets to the children and Tom. She was cold down to her bones. Tom shifted slightly, making room beside him. "Medical necessity," he said. "Body heat. You know the principle." Kate hesitated. Then she lay down beside him, careful of his wounded leg. Tom wrapped his good arm around her, pulling her close. The heat from his body was incredible, even though he had just been fevered. "Is this all right?" he whispered. Kate nodded against his chest. More than all right. For the first time since Owen died, she felt safe. "I heard you," Tom said quietly. "When you were trying to bring down my fever, you said something." Kate's heart skipped. "What did I say?" "You said you thought you were falling in love with me." Kate closed her eyes. She had not meant for him to hear that. "It is too soon," she whispered. "Owen has only been dead a year. Your Sarah only 2 years. This is not right." "Why not?" "Because grief is not love, and gratitude is not love. And I do not know what I feel, or if it is real, or if I am just clinging to the first person who showed me kindness." Tom was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I heard you, and I have an answer." "What?" "I love you too." Kate's breath caught. "Tom, you do not have to." "I am not saying it because you want to hear it. I am saying it because it is true." His arm tightened around her. "I spent 2 years being half dead, going through the motions, raising my boys but not really living. And then I saw you in that cage, and something in me woke up. That is not love, that is—" "Let me finish." Tom's voice was gentle but firm. "These past few days, watching you care for my sons, watching you fight beside me, watching you refuse to break no matter what Blackwood threw at you, I have fallen in love with who you are. Not because you need saving, but because you do not." Kate felt tears on her cheeks. "I do need saving. I have needed it for so long." "No, you needed someone to stand with you. That is different. And I want to be that person, if you will let me." Kate turned in his arms until she could see his face in the firelight. His eyes were steady and sure and full of something that looked like hope. "I am afraid," she whispered. "So am I. But maybe that is how we know it is real." Kate kissed him. It was not their first kiss, but it felt like it, gentle and tentative and full of promise. Tom's hand came up to cup her face, his calloused fingers incredibly tender. When they pulled apart, both were crying. "If we survive this," Tom said, "I want to marry you." Kate laughed through her tears. "We have known each other less than a week." "I know, and I do not care. When you know, you know. That is the fever talking. The fever is gone. This is me, clear-headed and certain." He looked at her seriously. "Will you marry me, Kate Morrison?" Kate looked at this man who had given her everything, who had risked his life, his sons, his home for her, who loved her not despite her brokenness, but because she had survived it. Yes, she whispered. If we survive this, yes. They held each other as the fire burned low and the children slept around them. And for a few hours, the world outside could not touch them. 3 days later, they reached Ruth Hollister's boarding house. The journey had been brutal. Tom could barely ride despite his best efforts. The children were exhausted. The horses were on their last legs. When Ruth's house appeared on the horizon, it looked like salvation. Ruth Hollister was a weathered woman in her late 40s with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much suffering. She took one look at Tom's pale face and Kate's desperate expression and started issuing orders. "Get that man inside. Boys, take the horses to the barn. You girl," she pointed at Kate, "help me with the medical supplies." Ruth worked with the efficiency of someone who had patched up wounded men before. She cleaned and rebandaged Tom's leg, gave him something for the pain, and had him settled in a proper bed within an hour. Kate found her in the kitchen afterward, making soup. "Thank you," Kate said, "for helping us." "No thanks needed. Any enemy of Blackwood is a friend of mine." "You know Cornelius Blackwood?" Ruth's face hardened. "I know what men like him do. My husband was one. Beat me for 10 years before I finally put an axe through his skull. Reverend Stone kept me from hanging for it, gave me this place. A fresh start." She stirred the soup viciously. "I heard you have something Blackwood wants. Ledgers that prove what he is." "How did you—" "Dr. Barnes rode ahead. Told Reverend Stone everything. The whole town knows you are coming." Kate felt a chill. "Is that safe? Liberty Springs is not like other towns. We protect our own, and if you are running from Blackwood, you are our own." Ruth ladled soup into bowls and set them on the table. "But I have to tell you something. 4 months ago, Blackwood's men took my daughter, Emma. She was 16 years old working in Cheyenne to send money home. They grabbed her off the street, and now she belongs to Blackwood. He uses her like property." Ruth's voice broke. "If you bring him down, my Emma goes free. So you tell me what you need and I will give it. Everything I have." Kate reached across the table and took Ruth's hand. "We will get her back," she promised. "When this is over, we will get Emma back." That night, Kate faced the hardest decision of her life. Sarah sat on her lap, playing with a rag doll Ruth had given her. The little girl was happy for the first time in days, warm and fed and surrounded by other children. Tom found Kate on the porch, watching the sunset. "We need to talk about Sarah," he said gently. Kate had been dreading this conversation. "I know what you are going to say, that it is too dangerous to take her to Liberty Springs, that she should stay here where it is safe. Ruth has offered to keep her, just until this is over. And what if it is never over? What if Blackwood kills us all? Then Sarah loses another parent." Tom sat beside her. His leg was better, but he still moved carefully. "I cannot tell you what to do," he said. "She is your daughter. But I can tell you this. If we take her with us and something happens, you will never forgive yourself. If we leave her here and something happens to us, at least she will be alive and safe with Ruth." Kate knew he was right, hated that he was right. "How do I tell her I am leaving her again?" "You tell her the truth, that you love her, that you are doing this to protect her, that you will come back. And if I do not," Tom took her hand, "then I will. I promise you, Kate. If something happens to you, I will come back for Sarah. I will raise her with my boys. She will never be alone." Kate looked at this man who kept making impossible promises and somehow keeping them. "I am going to hold you to that." She went inside and found Sarah. The little girl looked up with bright eyes. "Mama, Miss Ruth says I can stay here and play with the other children. Can I—" Kate knelt down so she was eye level with her daughter. "Yes, baby, you are going to stay here with Miss Ruth for a little while, just until Mama takes care of some things." Sarah's smile faded. "You are leaving me again. Just for a little while, I promise. You promised before, and then the bad men took me." The words cut like knives. "I know, baby, and I am so sorry. But this time will be different. This time you will be safe with Miss Ruth. And Mr. Tom and his boys will make sure the bad men never hurt anyone again." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I want to stay with you." I know you do." Kate pulled her daughter into her arms, holding her so tight. "But sometimes protecting someone means being apart from them for a little while. Do you understand?" Sarah shook her head against Kate's shoulder. "No, I want you to stay." Kate felt her heart breaking. She looked up and saw Tom in the doorway, his own eyes wet. Behind him, the 4 boys watched understanding written on their faces. Kate cried. Sarah cried. And Kate knew this was the right choice, even though it felt like dying. "I love you," Kate whispered into Sarah's hair. "I love you more than anything in this world. And I will come back. I swear on your father's grave I will come back for you." The next morning they left for Liberty Springs. Kate looked back once and saw Sarah standing on Ruth's porch, clutching the rag doll, her face streaked with tears. Ruth's arm was around the little girl's shoulders. "She will be all right," Tom said quietly. Kate nodded but said nothing, could not speak past the lump in her throat. They rode in silence for hours. The boys were subdued, understanding the weight of what they were riding toward. Even William had stopped trying to lighten the mood. When Liberty Springs finally appeared on the horizon, it looked smaller than Kate had imagined. Maybe 40 buildings clustered in a valley. One church with a white steeple. Smoke rising from chimneys. Normal. Peaceful. Too peaceful for what was coming. Reverend Joshua Stone met them at the edge of town. He was a tall man in his 50s with gray hair and kind eyes that had seen too much suffering. "Tom Garrett," he said, offering his hand. "Ruth sent word you were coming. Welcome to Liberty Springs." "Thank you for taking us in, Reverend. We built this town on one principle. No man owns another. If Blackwood comes here, he faces all of us." Stone looked at Kate. "And you must be Catherine Morrison. I am very sorry about your husband, and your father before him." Kate blinked. "You knew my father? James Morrison was a good man. I was sorry to hear of his death, even sorrier to learn it was not suicide as reported. When this is over, his name will be cleared." They were led to a small cabin at the edge of the settlement. 2 rooms, a fireplace, simple but sturdy. The boys immediately started unpacking, while Tom lowered himself into a chair by the fire, his leg clearly paining him. Stone pulled Kate aside. "We are gathering the town tonight. They need to hear your story, need to see the evidence, and then they will decide." "Decide what? Whether to stand with you or turn you over to Blackwood?" Stone's expression was grave. "Not everyone here is brave, Mrs. Morrison. Some have families, some are old. Some are just tired of fighting. You will have to convince them that you are worth dying for." Before Kate could respond, a young boy ran up breathless. "Reverend Stone riders coming from the east, lots of them." Everyone ran to the church tower. From there, Kate could see them. A line of horsemen stretched across the horizon. She counted quickly. 20, maybe 30, all armed, all riding hard toward Liberty Springs. At the front, unmistakable even at this distance, was Cornelius Blackwood. "He is early," Stone said grimly. "I expected we would have more time." Tom appeared beside them, leaning heavily on a crutch. "Then we do not have time to debate. Ring the bell, Reverend. Call everyone to the church. We make our stand now." Stone looked at the approaching army, then at Tom's determined face, then at Kate. "Ring the bell," he ordered. As the church bell pealed out across Liberty Springs, Kate felt the weight of what was coming. 30 armed men against a town of farmers and refugees. Cornelius Blackwood against everyone who had ever stood against him. And somewhere in the distance, her daughter waited, believing her mother would come back. Kate touched the pocket where she kept the ledgers. Everything Owen died for, everything her father died for. The truth that could destroy Blackwood. "This ends today," she said quietly. Tom took her hand. "Together." "Together," Kate agreed. The bell kept ringing, the town kept gathering, and Cornelius Blackwood kept coming. The final battle was about to begin, The church filled quickly. 40 families, maybe 200 people total, crowding into pews meant for half that number. Children sat on the floor. Old men leaned against the walls. Women clutched their husbands' hands and prayed. Kate stood at the front beside Reverend Stone, feeling the weight of their eyes. These people did not know her, did not owe her anything. Yet here they were, gathered because a stranger had brought trouble to their doorstep. Tom sat in the front pew, his wounded legs stretched out. His sons clustered around him. Daniel watched Kate with an expression she could not quite read. Fear, maybe, or determination, or both. Stone raised his hands for quiet. "Most of you have heard rumors," he began. "Let me give you facts. Cornelius Blackwood is riding toward our town with 30 armed men. He wants this woman, Catherine Morrison. He wants the ledgers her husband died protecting. Ledgers that prove Blackwood has murdered at least 15 men, bribed officials across the territory, and stolen land from dozens of families." A murmur ran through the crowd. "Mrs. Morrison has asked us for refuge, for protection, for justice. And Cornelius Blackwood is about 2 miles away. We need to decide right now what we are going to do." A man stood up in the back. Farmer Kate guessed from his weathered hands and sun-damaged face. "With respect, Reverend, we did not sign up to die for strangers. We came here to build new lives, safe lives." "I understand your concern, Mr. Johnson. Do you?" "I have got 3 children, a wife. If we stand against Blackwood, they could all die. For what? For ledgers? For revenge?" Another voice, a woman this time. "My husband was killed by Blackwood's men 5 years ago. We came here to escape, and now you are asking us to fight them again." More voices joined in. The debate grew heated. Kate stood silent, watching her last hope crumble. Then a new sound cut through the noise. Hoofbeats. Close. Coming fast. Everyone rushed to the windows. Kate saw them through the glass. 30 riders in a loose formation stopping just outside the town. At their head, unmistakable in his expensive coat, sat Cornelius Blackwood. Beside him, Victor Blackwood. And on a wagon behind them, chained and bruised and barely clothed, sat a teenage girl. Kate heard someone gasp. "Emma. That is Ruth's daughter, Emma." Cornelius dismounted slowly, making a show of it. He was 56, but moved like a younger man, confident and powerful. He looked toward the church where the entire town watched him. "People of Liberty Springs," his voice carried across the distance, trained and theatrical. "I have no quarrel with you. I want only what belongs to me, Catherine Morrison, and the property she stole." He gestured to the wagon. "To show I am a reasonable man, I have brought insurance. This is Emma Hollister, 16 years old, daughter of Ruth Hollister, who I believe lives among you. Return Catherine Morrison to me by sunset, and Emma goes free. Refuse, and the girl dies. It is that simple." Kate felt the church go cold around her. She looked at the faces of the townspeople and saw their calculation. One stranger's life, or one of their own, a girl they had known since she was a child. "I also want you to know," Cornelius continued, "that Catherine Morrison is a liar. Her father, James Morrison, was my partner 20 years ago. He tried to destroy our company with false accusations. When his lies failed, he killed himself out of shame. Her husband, Owen Morrison, stole from me and died in a mining accident of his own making. This woman is poison. Everything she touches dies." The words hit Kate like physical blows. She wanted to scream that it was all lies, but her throat had closed up. Ruth Hollister pushed through the crowd, her face a mask of anguish. "That is my baby," she whispered. "That is my Emma." She turned to Kate, and Kate saw the war in her eyes. A mother's love against a stranger's need. "Please," Ruth said, her voice breaking. "She is all I have left in this world. Please." Kate felt the room turning against her, felt the weight of Ruth's pain, Emma's suffering, the town's fear. How could she ask these people to sacrifice one of their own for her? "I will go," Kate said quietly. The room went silent. "No." Tom's voice cut through the stillness. He stood leaning heavily on his crutch, his face set like stone. The answer is no. Tom, that girl, I know what she is. I know what Blackwood is threatening. And I am telling you all right now, if we give in, Emma dies anyway, and then Blackwood will come back for someone else, and someone else, until there is nothing left of Liberty Springs but ashes and graves. Mr. Johnson stood again. That is easy for you to say, Garrett. It is not your daughter on that wagon. You are right. My daughter has been dead for 2 years, poisoned by Victor Blackwood because she tried to stand up for what was right. Tom's voice shook with emotion. And I will be damned if I let her death mean nothing, if I let evil men keep winning because good people are too afraid to fight. Reverend Stone raised his hands again. We need to vote. All in favor of surrendering Mrs. Morrison. 5 hands went up, then 10, then 15. Kate watched her fate being decided by strangers. She did not blame them. How could she? They were trying to save a child. All opposed, more hands rose, but not enough. Kate could see it in their faces. Fear was winning. Then Daniel Garrett stood up. At 14, he was not quite a man, not quite a boy. He was tall for his age, but still gangly, his voice sometimes cracking when he spoke. But when he climbed onto the pew so everyone could see him, he looked like a warrior. My name is Daniel Garrett, he said. His voice was steady, clear. 2 years ago, my mother was murdered, poisoned by Victor Blackwood because she witnessed him killing a minor. The church went deadly quiet. I knew. I saw Victor leave our house the day she got sick. He threatened to kill my father and my brothers if I told anyone, so I stayed quiet. I was 12 years old, and I was terrified. And my mother died because I said nothing. Daniel's voice cracked, but he pushed through. For 2 years I have lived with that, the guilt, the shame, telling myself I was just a kid, that there was nothing I could have done. But I was wrong. Silence is a choice. And my silence let evil win. He looked directly at Kate. When Mrs. Morrison came to our house, I hated her. I thought she was going to get my father killed, get all of us killed. I wanted her gone. I told my father to send her away. Tears started rolling down Daniel's face, but he did not wipe them away. But then I watched her, watched how she fought for her daughter, how she stood beside my father when he was wounded, how she never stopped trying to do what was right, even when it would have been easier to give up. He turned back to the crowd. Kate Morrison is not my mother. My mother is dead. But these past few days, watching her care for my brothers, watching her refuse to break no matter what Blackwood threw at her, I realized something. She is the kind of person my mother would have wanted in our lives, the kind of person worth fighting for. Daniel's voice rose, filling the church. My mother used to say that evil wins when good people stay silent. Well, I was silent once, and it killed her. I am not staying silent today. He looked at Ruth Hollister, who was crying openly now. Mrs. Hollister, I am so sorry about Emma, but if we give Kate to Blackwood, Emma will not be saved. She will just be trapped with a monster who has one less enemy to fear. The only way to save Emma is to destroy Blackwood completely, once and for all. Then Daniel turned to Kate, and in front of the entire town, in front of his father and brothers and 200 witnesses, he said the words that would change everything. Today, I call you Ma. The silence that followed was absolute. Then Kate broke. She had not truly cried since Owen died, had not let herself feel the full weight of everything she had lost, everything she had survived. But Daniel's words shattered the walls she had built around her heart. She stepped forward, and Daniel climbed down from the pew, and they met in the middle of the aisle. Kate wrapped her arms around this boy who was not her son, but who had just claimed her as his mother. Daniel held her just as tight, crying into her shoulder. "Thank you," Kate whispered. "Thank you, my brave boy." Tom came forward, leaning on his crutch, and put his arms around both of them. Then William, James, and Robert ran up, piling on, creating a knot of bodies and tears and love in the middle of the church. And then something extraordinary happened. Ruth Hollister stood. Tears streaming down her face, she walked to the front and added her arms to the embrace. "Even if it is my Emma," Ruth said, her voice breaking, "even if it costs me everything, we fight." One by one others stood. The farmer, Mr. Johnson, who had argued against fighting, the woman who had lost her husband, families with children, old men who had fled violence, young men who had never seen war. They stood and they wept, and they chose courage over fear. Reverend Stone's voice was thick with emotion when he spoke. All in favor of standing with Catherine Morrison and fighting Cornelius Blackwood. Every hand in the church went up, all 40 families, not one dissenting vote. "Then we prepare," Stone said. "We have until sunset. Let us make it count." The town moved with purpose. Men gathered weapons. Women prepared medical supplies. Children were sent to the church basement where they would be safe. Tom organized the defense with military precision, his years as a deputy sheriff coming back. He positioned shooters in windows, created fallback points, identified escape routes. Kate found herself standing in the general store surrounded by 3 women who were teaching her to reload rifles faster. "You have done this before," one of them said. "My husband taught me. He said women needed to protect themselves. Smart man." He was, until Blackwood killed him. The woman squeezed Kate's shoulder. "Then we make sure Blackwood pays. For your husband. For all of them." As the sun moved toward the western horizon, Kate sought out Tom. She found him on the church steps watching Blackwood's men in the distance. "They have not moved," Tom said. "Just waiting. They are confident. They think we will break." "Will we?" Kate looked at the town around them. At families saying goodbye to each other, just in case. At old men checking rifles they had not touched in years. At women who had fled violence preparing to face it again. "No," she said. "We will not break." Tom turned to her. Despite the danger, despite everything, he smiled. "I love you, Kate Morrison. We have known each other less than 2 weeks. I do not care. When this is over, when Blackwood is dead or in chains, I am marrying you, right here in this church in front of everyone." Kate felt tears threatening again. "You are insane." "Probably, but you said yes 3 days ago, and I am holding you to it." He leaned in to kiss her. Kate rose to meet him, her hand cupping his face. The kiss was interrupted by a gunshot. They broke apart and saw Cornelius Blackwood standing in the middle of the street, a pistol pointed at the sky. "Your time is up," he shouted. "Send out Catherine Morrison, or we start killing." Reverend Stone appeared beside Tom and Kate. "This is it," he said quietly. "Are you ready?" Kate took a deep breath. In her pocket she felt the ledgers, not the real ones. Those were hidden, sewn into the lining of a coat in the church basement. What she carried now were fake pages carefully written by Dr. Barnes to look authentic at a distance. "I am ready." The plan was simple. Kate would walk out with the fake ledgers, make the exchange for Emma. When Blackwood realized the ledgers were fake, the shooting would start. The town would have crossfire from windows and rooftops. Tom would snipe from the church bell tower. It was a desperate plan, a dangerous plan. But it was all they had. Kate stepped into the street. The walk from the church to where Blackwood waited felt like walking to the gallows. Every step took effort. Every breath was a prayer. Behind her, she felt the entire town watching. Tom in the bell tower with his rifle. Daniel and the other fighters positioned in windows. The women and children hidden in the basement. Cornelius Blackwood watched her approach with cold eyes. He looked older up close, harder, like something essential had been carved out of him years ago, leaving only ambition and cruelty. "Catherine," he said, almost warmly, like they were old friends. "How much you look like your father. James would be so disappointed to see what you have become." "My father would be proud I am standing up to you. Your father was a fool, just like your husband, just like you." Kate held up the satchel containing the fake ledgers. "These are what you want. Give me Emma, and you can have them." Blackwood smiled. "I do not think so. Hand them over first." "No, Emma first. You are not in a position to negotiate. Neither are you. You are in the middle of a town full of people who want you dead. Release Emma, or find out how many of your men make it out of Liberty Springs alive." Something flickered in Blackwood's eyes. Surprise, maybe. He had not expected her to have courage left. "Very well." He gestured, and one of his men dragged Emma forward. The girl could barely walk. Kate could see bruises on her arms, her face. 4 months of captivity had nearly destroyed her. "Come here, sweetheart," Kate said gently. Emma stumbled toward her. Kate caught her, steadied her. "Run to the church," Kate whispered. "Your mother is there." Emma nodded and ran her bare feet, kicking up dust. Kate handed the satchel to Blackwood. He opened it, pulled out the papers, scanned them. His face went dark. "These are fake." "No, they are very real. That is Owen's handwriting. Those are your crimes." Blackwood read more carefully. Kate could see the moment he realized the truth. These were not the real ledgers. The dates were wrong, the details too vague. "You think I'm stupid?" Blackwood's voice went deadly quiet. "I think you are a murderer, a thief, a man who has spent 20 years hurting people because he can. And I think that ends today." Blackwood drew his pistol. "You just made the last mistake of your life." He fired. The bullet hit Kate in the shoulder, spinning her around and dropping her to the ground. Pain exploded through her body, white-hot and overwhelming. From the church she heard Tom scream her name. Then all hell broke loose. Gunfire erupted from every direction. The townspeople opened up from windows and rooftops. Blackwood's men returned fire. The peaceful street became a war zone in seconds. Kate lay in the dirt, clutching her bleeding shoulder, trying to breathe through the pain. She saw boots running past her, saw men falling, heard screaming and gunfire and chaos. Then Daniel was there, dragging her toward cover. The boy was crying, but moving with purpose, getting her behind a water trough. "Mama, stay down, stay down." From the bell tower, Tom's rifle barked again and again. Kate saw 3 of Blackwood's men fall. Tom was a good shot, even wounded. But there were too many of them. The battle raged for what felt like hours, but was probably minutes. Kate's vision started to blur from blood loss. She pressed her hand against her shoulder, trying to stop the bleeding, but it kept coming. Through the haze, she saw Cornelius Blackwood still standing in the middle of the street, untouched, unmoved. Like violence could not reach him, he raised his pistol and aimed at the church bell tower. At Tom. Kate tried to scream a warning, but her voice would not work. Blackwood fired 3 times, and Tom Garrett, the man who had saved her from an iron cage, the man she loved, the man she was going to marry, fell from the bell tower. Kate heard herself screaming then, heard Daniel screaming, heard the whole world screaming. And still the guns kept firing, and still men kept dying, and the sun kept sinking toward the horizon, painting Liberty Springs in shades of red and gold, the color of sunset, the color of blood, the color of everything Kate had left to lose. Tom was not dead. Kate saw him through the haze of her own pain, saw him lying at the base of the church steps where he had fallen. Not moving, blood spreading beneath him, but his chest rose and fell. Breathing, still breathing. Daniel saw it too. The boy started to run toward his father, but Kate grabbed his arm. "No, stay in cover. He needs you alive." "But Papa is still alive, and we are going to keep him that way." The gunfight had settled into a deadly stalemate. Blackwood's men had taken cover behind wagons and barrels. The townspeople fired from windows and doorways. Bodies lay in the street. Kate counted 8 of Blackwood's men down, but she also saw 3 townspeople who would not be getting up. Victor Blackwood emerged from behind a wagon, his scarred face twisted with rage. He was heading for the church, for the basement where the women and children hid. Kate pushed herself up, ignoring the screaming pain in her shoulder. She grabbed the rifle Daniel had dropped and steadied it against the water trough. "What are you doing?" Daniel hissed. What should have been done 2 years ago? Kate aimed, breathed, fired. The bullet caught Victor in the leg and he went down hard. Not a killing shot, but enough to stop his advance. He rolled behind cover, cursing, and Kate saw blood spreading across his pants. Good. Let him bleed. But Victor was not done. He rose again, limping now, and fired toward the church basement windows. The glass shattered. Kate heard screams from inside. Children's screams. Something cold and hard settled in Kate's chest. She had spent a year running from these men, a year terrified and broken and convinced she was too weak to fight back. She was done running. Kate stood up, fully stepped out from behind the trough and walked into the open street. "Kate, no!" Daniel shouted. But Kate was not listening. She advanced on Victor Blackwood with the rifle raised, firing as she walked. 1 shot, 2, 3. She was not the best shot, but at this range she did not need to be. 1 bullet caught Victor in the shoulder. He spun, lost his balance, fell again. Kate kept walking, kept firing. Her own wound forgotten, her fear forgotten. Everything forgotten except the need to end this man who had poisoned Sarah Garrett, who had tormented her for a year, who had just tried to murder children. Victor scrambled backward, his gun coming up. He fired wild, panicked. The bullet went wide. Kate's next shot did not. It hit Victor square in the chest. He looked down at the spreading red stain, looked back up at Kate with something like surprise in his eyes. "For Sarah," Kate said quietly. "For all of them." Victor Blackwood died in the dirt of Liberty Springs, his blood mixing with the dust. The gunfire around them had stopped. Everyone was staring at Kate, at the widow who had just killed a man in cold blood and was still standing still, steady, still breathing. Cornelius Blackwood's voice shattered the silence. "You killed my son." Kate turned to face him. Cornelius stood in the middle of the street, his expensive coat covered in dust, his perfect composure finally cracking. "Your son was a murderer," Kate said. "Just like you. You have no proof. Those ledgers were fake. Those were fake. The real ones are safe, and they are already on their way to Denver. By tomorrow, every federal marshal in the territory will know what you have done. You have already lost Cornelius. You just do not know it yet." It was a bluff. The real ledgers were still hidden in the church basement. But Cornelius did not know that. His face went white, then red, then something beyond rage. "If I am going to hang," he said, raising his pistol, "then you are coming with me." The shot came from behind Kate. Not from Blackwood's gun, but from somewhere else. Somewhere small and desperate and brave. A little girl stood in the doorway of the church, 6 years old, with brown hair and her father's eyes. Sarah Morrison, who was supposed to be safe at Ruth Hollister's boarding house 10 miles away, who had somehow gotten here, who had somehow found a pistol too big for her small hands. She had fired at Cornelius and missed. But the distraction was enough. Tom Garrett rose from where he had been, lying, blood streaming from wounds in his shoulder and side and leg, using the church wall to hold himself upright. His rifle came up smooth and steady, despite his injuries. "Papa Tom," Sarah screamed, "the bad man is going to hurt Mama." The words hit Kate like lightning. Papa Tom? Her daughter had called him Papa Tom. Tom's rifle barked once. The bullet took Cornelius Blackwood in the chest, dead center, exactly where Tom had been aiming. The mining baron staggered backward, his pistol falling from nerveless fingers. "That is for my Sarah," Tom said, his voice thick with pain, "and for Kate's Owen, and for James Morrison, and for every person you ever hurt." He fired again. "And this is for Emma Hollister and the 15 miners and every family you destroyed." Cornelius fell to his knees, blood bubbling from his lips. He tried to speak, but only red foam came out. Tom limped forward, using his rifle as a crutch, and stood over the dying man. "You were wrong about one thing," Tom said quietly. "You said everything Catherine Morrison touches dies. But she did not kill you. Justice did. And that is going to be your legacy. Not your money, not your power, just the fact that when you pushed too far, regular people stood up and said, 'Enough.'" Cornelius Blackwood died staring up at the sky, his eyes empty, his empire already crumbling. The remaining men from Blackwood's crew threw down their weapons. 5 of them left out of 30. They were quickly surrounded and disarmed by the townspeople. Then Sarah was running across the street, her little legs pumping, tears streaming down her face. "Papa, Tom, Mama." Kate caught her daughter and pulled her close, sobbing into her hair. Tom collapsed beside them, his strength finally giving out. Daniel ran from cover and caught his father before he hit the ground. "Papa, you are alive. You are alive." "Barely," Tom managed. His face was gray with blood loss. "But I am not dying today, not when I just got a daughter." He looked at Sarah, who was crying against Kate's shoulder. "Did you just call me Papa?" Sarah nodded, unable to speak. "Well then," Tom's voice was faint but warm. "I guess that makes it official." Kate pressed her hand against Tom's worst wound, the one in his side, trying to stop the bleeding. Around them, the townspeople were emerging from their hiding places. Dr. Barnes appeared, his medical bag in hand. "Let me see him." They worked on Tom right there in the street while the sun set and the bodies were counted, and the survivors began to understand what they had done. They had faced Cornelius Blackwood and won. The cost had been high. 3 townspeople dead, 8 more wounded, Tom barely clinging to life. But they had won. Emma Hollister found her mother in the crowd. Ruth held her daughter and wept and thanked God and promised never to let her go again. Reverend Stone gathered the survivors in the church as night fell. They were battered and bloodied and exhausted. But they were alive, and they were free. 2 days later, Kate and Tom were married. Tom was still too weak to stand for long, so they brought a chair for him at the altar. His left arm was in a sling. His leg was bandaged. But he was smiling when Kate walked down the aisle in a simple dress the women of Liberty Springs had sewn for her. Daniel stood beside his father as best man. William James and Robert were groomsmen, their faces scrubbed clean and shining with pride. Sarah was the flower girl scattering petals from wildflowers the children had picked that morning. The entire town had come. 40 families packed into the church celebrating not just a wedding, but their survival, their victory, their future. Reverend Stone stood before them, his face still showing the strain of battle, but his eyes full of joy. "Dearly beloved," he began, "we are gathered here today to witness the union of 2 people who have walked through fire and found each other on the other side." Kate looked at Tom and saw the man who had broken open an iron cage, who had risked his life and his son's for a stranger who had taken 3 bullets and still managed to protect her daughter, who had somehow impossibly fallen in love with her. "Tom Garrett," Stone continued, "do you take Catherine Morrison to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part?" "I do." Tom's voice was strong despite his injuries. "I absolutely do." "And do you, Catherine Morrison, take Tom Garrett to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Kate felt tears starting, but she did not care. "Let them fall. Let everyone see." "I do." "Then, by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Tom, you may kiss your bride." Tom stood carefully, leaning on his good leg, and pulled Kate close with his good arm. The kiss was gentle and sweet and full of promise. The church erupted in applause and cheers. At the reception afterward, held in the church hall with food donated by every family in town, Daniel stood to give a toast. The boy looked so young and so old at the same time. 14 years old, but with eyes that had seen death and loss and violence, yet also hope, also love. "To my new mother," Daniel said, his voice carrying across the room. "Kate Morrison Garrett. She is not the woman who gave birth to me. That was Sarah Garrett, and I will love and honor her memory until the day I die." He paused, composing himself. "But Kate earned the right to be called Ma, not through biology, not through obligation, but through choice. She chose to stand with us, chose to fight beside us, chose to love us even when we gave her every reason not to. Daniel's voice cracked, but he pushed through. She is not my mother, but she is my ma, and that is something she earned, something she deserves, something I will be proud to call her for the rest of my life. He raised his glass. To Ma, the bravest woman I know. The room exploded in cheers and tears. Kate was crying. Tom was crying. Half the town was crying. Daniel came down from the table and Kate pulled him into her arms, holding him tight. "Thank you, my son," she whispered. "My brave, beautiful son." The celebration lasted well into the night. Children ran wild through the church hall. Old men told stories of the battle. Women danced with their husbands and thanked God they had survived. And Kate Garrett, formerly Morrison, stood with her new husband and her new sons and her daughter and felt something she had not felt in years. Complete. 25 years later, on a warm spring day in 1907, Kate sat on the porch of Garrett Ranch and watched her grandchildren play. She was 57 years old now. Her hair was more gray than brown. Her hands showed the wear of decades of ranch work, but she was healthy and happy and surrounded by love. Tom sat beside her, 64 years old, his hair completely white, still using a cane from the wounds he had taken at Liberty Springs. But he was alive and still held her hand every night before they went to sleep. The ranch had been rebuilt bigger and better than before. 5,000 acres now. 100 head of cattle, horses in the pasture, barns and outbuildings, and a house that had been expanded 3 times to accommodate the growing family. Daniel and his wife Mary lived in the main house with their 3 children. At 39, Daniel managed the ranch with the same careful attention he had given to everything since he was a boy. His oldest son, Daniel Jr., was 18 and planning to study law in Denver. William had become a doctor, just like he always dreamed. He lived in Liberty Springs with his wife and 2 children, caring for the town that had saved his family. James was a teacher. His 4 children were scattered between ages 5 and 15, all of them readers like their father. Robert the baby, who was now 30, had been elected sheriff of Liberty Springs 3 years ago. He was married with twin daughters, aged 3, the youngest and most mischievous of all the grandchildren. And Sarah Morrison Garrett, 31 years old and married to a rancher from the next county over, had 2 children who visited the ranch every Sunday. She still called Tom Papa Tom, would always call him Papa Tom. 14 grandchildren total. The youngest was 3. Twin girls who belonged to Robert. The oldest was 18, almost a man. Kate watched them run and play and fight and laugh and thought about the journey that had brought her here. The iron cage, the frozen town square, the man who had paid $100 for her freedom. "What are you thinking about?" Tom asked. He always knew when she was lost in memory. Everything. The cage, Dust Creek, Blackwood. That was a long time ago. 25 years, but it feels like yesterday. Tom squeezed her hand. "Do you regret any of it?" Kate thought about the question seriously. The pain, the fear, the violence, the deaths, the cost. "No," she said finally, "because it brought me to you, to this, to them." She gestured at the children at the ranch, at the life they had built from ashes and blood and determination. Daniel Jr. ran up to the porch, breathless and excited. "Grandpa Tom, Grandma Kate, tell us the story again about how you met." "You have heard that story 100 times," Tom said, "but I want to hear it again, please." Tom looked at Kate, and she nodded. Together they told the story one more time, about the iron cage, about the man who broke it open, about the journey that had nearly killed them, about standing together against evil men who thought power made them gods. The children listened with wide eyes, even though they knew every word by heart. When the story was finished, Daniel Jr. asked the question he always asked. "And the ledgers, what happened to them?" "We sent them to the federal marshal in Denver," Kate said. "Cornelius Blackwood's mining company was shut down. His assets were seized. The families he had cheated were compensated. Justice was served. And Emma Hollister, married a blacksmith from Liberty Springs, had 5 children, lived a long and happy life. And Ruth lived to see her grandchildren grow up, died peacefully in her sleep 10 years ago. And you two, Tom and Kate looked at each other and smiled. We lived, Tom said simply. We raised our family. We built something good from something terrible. And we loved each other every single day. The children ran off to play, satisfied with the story for now. They would ask again next week, and the week after. The story had become legend in the family, the foundation myth of the Garrett clan. As the sun began to set, the family gathered for dinner. 32 people around tables that had been pushed together on the lawn. Tom led them in prayer, thanking God for family, for health, for the life they had built together. After dinner, as the younger children were put to bed and the adults settled on the porch with coffee, Daniel stood to make an announcement. I wanted to tell you all something, he said. Daniel Jr. has been accepted to study law at the University of Denver. He wants to be a prosecutor. Says he wants to make sure men like Blackwood never hurt people again. Pride filled Tom's voice. Your mother would be so proud. Both of your mothers. Kate felt Tom's hand find hers again. Even after 25 years, the gesture was automatic, necessary. Later, when everyone had gone home or to bed, Tom and Kate stood on the porch alone, looking out over the ranch. Do you remember what I said to you that first night? Tom asked. After I brought you home from the cage, you said a lot of things that night. I said you did not owe me anything, that I did what anyone should have done. I remember. Tom turned to face her, his blue eyes still sharp despite his age. I was wrong. You did owe me something, and you paid it 1,000 times over. You gave me a reason to live again. You loved my sons when you did not have to. You stood beside me when anyone else would have run. You gave me 25 years of happiness I never thought I would have again. Kate reached up and touched his face, feeling the familiar, rough texture of his skin. We saved each other, she said. That is what we did. You broke open my cage and I gave you a reason to keep living. It was always both of us. Together, Tom said. Together, Kate agreed. They stood in the darkness, holding each other, surrounded by the quiet sounds of the ranch settling for the night. Horses in the pasture, cattle in the distance, somewhere a grandchild laughing in their sleep. Kate thought about the woman she had been 25 years ago, locked in an iron cage, certain she was going to die, hopeless and broken and alone. That woman would not recognize the woman she had become. Strong, loved, the matriarch of a family that spanned 2 generations, a woman who had killed a man to protect children and slept soundly afterward because it had been the right thing to do. Do you think they understand? Kate asked quietly. The children and grandchildren, do they understand what it cost to get here? They will, Tom said, when they face their own cages, when they find their own battles, when they have to choose between running and standing. The story will be there. Your courage will be there. And they will remember that their grandmother refused to break. We were lucky. We were brave. There is a difference. Tom was right. Luck had nothing to do with it. They had made choices, hard choices, dangerous choices, and those choices had led them here. Inside the house, Kate could hear someone playing the piano, one of the grandchildren practicing the hymns they would play in church on Sunday, the same church where she and Tom had been married, where Daniel had called her Ma for the first time, where Reverend Stone had blessed their union. Stone had passed 5 years ago. But Liberty Springs thrived. It had grown to nearly 200 families, a real town now with schools and shops and a future. All because people had chosen to stand together against evil, all because regular folks had said enough. Kate leaned her head against Tom's shoulder, feeling his arm come around her automatically. I love you, she said. After 25 years, I love you more than I did on our wedding day. I love you too. Tom pressed a kiss to her hair. My iron widow, my warrior, my Kate. They stood together as the stars came out and the moon rose and the night settled over Garrett Ranch like a blanket. Tomorrow there would be work, cattle to tend, grandchildren to spoil, a ranch to run, a family to love. But tonight there was just this: two people who had survived hell and built heaven from the ashes, who had refused to break, who had chosen love over fear and hope over despair, who had proven that sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is simply keep living, keep fighting, keep loving, even when it would be easier to give up, especially then. Kate Morrison Garrett had been locked in an iron cage for 6 days, condemned to die for the crime of being poor and stubborn and in the way of powerful men. But a rancher with 4 sons and a broken heart had seen something in her worth saving, and together they had built something that guns and money and hatred could not destroy. A family forged not by blood alone, but by choice, by courage, by the decision to stand together when it would have been easier to walk away. That legacy would outlive them both. It would live in Daniel Jr.'s fight for justice, in William's healing hands, in James's lessons to the next generation, in Robert's protection of the innocent, in Sarah's fierce love for her own children. It would echo through the years in stories told on front porches and around dinner tables. The legend of the widow in the cage and the man who freed her. The Battle of Liberty Springs. The defeat of Cornelius Blackwood. And long after Kate and Tom were gone, long after their children had children who had children, the message would remain: evil can be defeated. Kindness is strength. And family is whoever you choose to love when the world tells you to walk away. That was the truth Kate and Tom had learned. That was the legacy they left behind, and it would endure forever.